Mira's heart races as her sleek Iridian spacecraft glides into the docking bay of Orion 7, the bustling human shipyard orbiting Earth's moon. She's the first of her kind to set foot in a human facility since their species made contact 6 months ago. The young, ambitious alien female pilot feels the weight of history on her shoulders as she initiates docking procedures. Harsh lighting floods the bay as Mira's ship settles into place. She takes a deep breath, steeling herself for the encounter ahead. The hiss of the airlock punctuates the tense silence. Mira steps out, her iridescent skin shimmering under the artificial lights. The human crew watches warily, hands hovering near their weapons. Chief Officer Austin Allen stands at the forefront of the security team. His tall, muscular frame towers over Mira as she approaches. Years of interstellar conflict have left both species distrustful, and the tension in the air is palpable. Mira extends her credentials, her slender fingers brushing against Austin's calloused hand. Austin's stern gaze meets Mira's, and something unexpected happens. A spark of attraction ignites between them, catching both off guard. Mira finds herself captivated by Austin's commanding presence and physique, so different from the slender, androgynous males of her own species. She struggles to maintain her composure as her heart rate accelerates. For Austin, the encounter is equally unsettling. He battles his growing interest in the alien visitor, acutely aware that fraternization could jeopardize his career and the delicate diplomatic balance between their races. Yet he can't help but be drawn to Mira's exotic beauty and grace. As Austin scrutinizes Mira's documents, neither realizes they're being closely observed. Human and Iridian intelligence agencies monitor the interaction with a mix of concern and curiosity. The potential for this encounter to bridge the gap between two wary civilizations, or reignite long-standing hostilities, hangs in the balance. Austin clears Mira for entry, his professional demeanor masking his internal conflict. "Welcome to Orion 7, Ambassador Mira," he says, his deep voice sending an involuntary shiver down her spine. "I'll escort you to your quarters." As they walk through the station's corridors, Mira steals glances at Austin, her mind reeling with the implications of her feelings. She's experiencing an emotion forbidden by Iridian cultural norms, attraction to a male of another species. The consequences could be severe, yet she finds herself unable to quell the growing desire. Austin leads Mira to her assigned room, keenly aware of her presence beside him. He fights the urge to engage in casual conversation, to learn more about this intriguing alien woman. His duty demands he remain professional and detached, but his heart yearns for connection. As they reach Mira's quarters, their eyes meet once more. In that brief moment, both recognize the potential for something revolutionary, a connection that could reshape the future of human-Iridian relations. But with that potential comes great risk. And as Austin turns to leave, the weight of their unspoken attraction lingers in the air. The stage is set for a potentially groundbreaking interspecies romance, one that could either unite two worlds or tear them further apart. As Mira watches Austin's retreating form, she knows her mission on Orion 7 has just become far more complicated than she ever anticipated. As the door to Mira's quarters slid shut, she leaned against it, her mind racing. The encounter with Chief Officer Austin Allen had left her feeling both exhilarated and uneasy. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure and focus on the task at hand. The following morning, Mira reported to the engineering bay, where she found Austin already hard at work. He looked up as she approached, their eyes meeting briefly before both quickly averted their gaze. "Ambassador Mira," Austin said, his voice professional but with an underlying warmth. "I trust you found your quarters satisfactory?" Mira nodded, her iridescent skin shimmering under the bay's harsh lights. "Yes, thank you. I'm eager to begin our work on the joint project." Austin gestured to a nearby workstation. "We'll be combining Iridian propulsion technology with our shielding systems. Your expertise will be invaluable." As they began their collaboration, the initial awkwardness between them gradually dissipated. Mira found herself impressed by Austin's quick grasp of Iridian concepts, while Austin marveled at Mira's innovative approach to human technology. Days turned into weeks, and their working relationship deepened. They often found themselves working late into the night, poring over schematics and running simulations. During these sessions, they shared stories of their respective worlds, their laughter echoing through the empty engineering bay. One evening, as they were conducting a routine maintenance check on the experimental hybrid engine, alarms suddenly blared throughout the bay. The engine's core began to pulse with an ominous red glow, indicating a dangerous power surge. Austin's eyes widened. "The fail-safes aren't responding," he shouted over the din. Without hesitation, he sprinted towards the manual override panel. Mira's heart raced as she watched Austin work. His movements were swift and precise, his muscular frame tensed with concentration. She snapped out of her momentary trance and rushed to assist him. "The Iridian matrix is destabilizing," she called out, her slender fingers flying over the control interface. "I can realign it, but I need you to modulate the human shielding frequency." Austin nodded, sweat beading on his brow as he worked furiously to adjust the systems. The air crackled with energy as Mira channeled her knowledge of Iridian technology, her skin glowing brightly with the effort. For a tense moment, it seemed their efforts might be in vain. Then, with a final push from both of them, the engine's angry red glow faded to a calm blue. The alarms fell silent, leaving them both breathing heavily in the sudden quiet. They turned to each other, relief evident on their faces. Austin reached out, his hand grasping Mira's shoulder. "That was incredible work," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Mira felt a warmth spread through her at his touch. "We make a good team," she replied softly, her eyes locked with his. The moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. They quickly stepped apart as Admiral Jonathan Blackwell strode into the bay, his face a mask of stern authority. "Report, Chief Officer Allen," Blackwell demanded, his eyes narrowing as they flicked between Austin and Mira. As Austin explained the incident, Mira noticed a figure lurking in the shadows behind the Admiral. Lieutenant Sarah Chen watched the proceedings with keen interest, her gaze calculating and cold. In the days that followed, Mira sensed a shift in the atmosphere of Orion 7. She often caught glimpses of Lieutenant Chen observing her interactions with Austin, and she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Despite this, Mira and Austin's bond continued to grow. Late one night, they found themselves alone in the shipyard's observation deck, surrounded by the vast expanse of space. "Do you miss your home?" Austin asked, his voice soft in the quiet room. Mira turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Sometimes, but being here, working on this project, it feels right." Austin stepped closer, his hand reaching out to brush against hers. "Mira, Before he could finish, a harsh beep from the communication panel cut through the air. Admiral Blackwell's voice crackled over the speaker, summoning Austin to his office immediately. As Austin left, Mira's gaze lingered on his retreating form. She was so lost in thought that she almost missed the flashing light of an incoming transmission from her homeworld. The message was brief but clear. Ambassador Krell would be arriving at Orion 7 within the week for an inspection. Mira's heart sank. She knew Krell well. Her former mentor was as cunning as he was ambitious. His arrival could only complicate the delicate balance she and Austin had struck. As she stared out at the stars, Mira couldn't help but feel that the true challenges were only just beginning. As Mira contemplated the implications of Ambassador Krell's impending arrival, she couldn't shake the feeling that her world was about to be turned upside down. The days that followed her near kiss with Austin on the observation deck were filled with a palpable tension that seemed to permeate every interaction between them. Their work on the joint human-Iridian engineering project continued, but gone was the easy camaraderie they had developed. Instead, their conversations became stilted and formal, each hyper-aware of the other's presence. Mira found herself fumbling with tools she had mastered years ago, distracted by Austin's proximity. For his part, Austin's normally confident demeanor gave way to hesitation and awkward silences. Ambassador Krell's arrival brought an immediate shift in the atmosphere of Orion 7. His piercing gaze seemed to miss nothing as he toured the facility, paying particular attention to the interactions between human and Iridian personnel. Mira felt a chill run down her spine when Krell's eyes lingered on her and Austin during a project briefing. The following day, Mira was summoned to Krell's temporary office. The ambassador's face was a mask of concern as he informed her of her reassignment to a different section of the shipyard. We must be mindful of cultural contamination, Mira, Krell said, his voice smooth as silk. It's crucial that you interact with a broader range of human personnel. We wouldn't want anyone to question your objectivity, would we? Mira's heart sank, but she maintained a neutral expression. Of course, Ambassador. I understand completely. As she packed up her workstation, Mira caught Austin's eye across the room. The pain and confusion in his gaze mirrored her own, but neither dared speak. The distance between them felt insurmountable. In her new assignment, Mira threw herself into her work, trying to ignore the constant ache of Austin's absence. She found her thoughts drifting to him at the most inopportune moments, wondering what he was doing, if he was thinking of her too. Unknown to both Mira and Austin, their every move was being scrutinized. Lieutenant Sarah Chen moved through the shipyard like a shadow, her eyes sharp and calculating. Under Admiral Blackwell's orders, she installed hidden cameras in their workspaces and living quarters, meticulously documenting every interaction, no matter how small. As Chen reviewed the footage late one night, she leaned in close to her monitor, a satisfied smirk playing on her lips. "Gotcha," she whispered, watching Austin's lingering gaze follow Mira as she left the engineering bay. Meanwhile, Ambassador Krell set the next phase of his plan in motion. He introduced a new Iridian engineer named Lyra to the project team. Young and striking, Lyra possessed a natural charm that drew the attention of both humans and Iridians alike. "Chief Officer Allen," Krell said, his tone carefully neutral, "I believe you'll find Lyra's expertise invaluable to the project. Please ensure she's fully integrated into the team." Austin nodded, extending a hand to Lyra. "Welcome aboard. I look forward to working with you." As the days passed, Lyra became a constant presence at Austin's side. Her quick wit and sharp intellect made her a natural fit for the project, and Austin found himself enjoying their collaborations. They often worked late into the night, poring over schematics and running simulations. From her new workstation across the shipyard, Mira observed their interactions with a growing sense of unease. She watched as Lyra leaned in close to Austin, pointing out something on a display screen, her hand lingering on his arm. The sight sent a jolt of an unfamiliar emotion through Mira, a burning, twisting sensation in her gut that she struggled to identify. It wasn't until she overheard two human crew members gossiping about Austin and Lyra's obvious chemistry that Mira recognized the feeling for what it was: jealousy. The realization shook her to her core. Such an emotion was considered deeply taboo in Iridian culture, a sign of possessiveness and lack of control. As the experimental hybrid engine project entered its critical phase, tensions on Orion 7 reached a fever pitch. The night before the scheduled test run, Mira found herself drawn to the engine room, unable to sleep. As she entered, she froze, seeing Austin already there, hunched over a control panel. He looked up, their eyes meeting for the first time in weeks. The air between them crackled with unspoken words and suppressed emotions. "Mira," Austin breathed, taking a step towards her. I've missed working with you." Mira's breath caught in her throat. "As have I," she admitted, closing the distance between them. Before either could think better of it, they came together in a passionate kiss. Weeks of longing and frustration pouring out in a single electric moment. Neither noticed the small red light blinking on a hidden camera in the corner of the room. The next morning, as Austin prepared for the engine test, Admiral Blackwell's voice crackled over his personal comm. "My office, now!" Austin's stomach dropped as he entered Blackwell's office, finding the Admiral and Lieutenant Chen waiting for him. Blackwell's face was a mask of awe-inspiring fury as he played the footage of Austin and Mira's kiss. "You have a choice to make, Chief Officer Allen," Blackwell growled. "Either you sabotage this engine test, or I expose your little alien affair to both governments. Your career, your reputation, everything you've worked for, gone in an instant. What's it going to be?" Austin's mind reeled as he left Blackwell's office, the weight of the impossible choice pressing down on him. As he made his way to the test chamber, he caught sight of Mira and Lyra already at their stations, each unaware of the turmoil raging within him. The chamber filled with high-ranking officials from both species, the air thick with anticipation. Ambassador Krell's eyes gleamed with barely concealed triumph as he took his seat. Admiral Blackwell stood rigidly at attention, his gaze boring into Austin. As Austin took his position at the main control panel, his hand hovered over the activation sequence. The fate of human-Iridian relations, his career, and his heart, all hung in the balance. The countdown began, each second ticking by with agonizing slowness. Austin's fingers trembled as he prepared to input the final command. He glanced at Mira, her face a picture of focus and drive, unaware of the betrayal he was about to commit. Then his eyes fell on Lyra, her expression unreadable, a reminder of the complex web of loyalties and deceptions that had led to this moment. With a deep breath, Austin made his choice and pressed the button. Final command. In that split second, Austin made his choice. He input the activation sequence exactly as planned, disregarding Admiral Blackwell's orders. The hybrid engine roared to life, its powerful hum reverberating through the test chamber. Mira's eyes widened as she monitored the energy output, which quickly surpassed their most optimistic projections. The assembled officials leaned forward in their seats, murmurs of excitement rippling through the crowd. Energy levels stable at 120% of predicted maximum, Mira announced, her voice crisp and professional, despite the surge of triumph she felt. Austin's fingers danced across the control panel, making minute adjustments to optimize the engine's performance. He caught Lyra's eye across the room, and she gave him a subtle nod of approval. As the test concluded, the chamber erupted in applause. Human and Iridian officials alike rose to their feet, marveling at the breakthrough they had just witnessed. Ambassador Krell's face was a mask of barely concealed shock, while Admiral Blackwell's expression darkened with fury. Before Austin could bask in the success of the demonstration, he felt a heavy hand on his shoulder. He turned to find two stone-faced security officers flanking him. "Chief Officer Allen, you're under arrest for fraternization with an alien species and suspicion of espionage," one of the officers declared. Loud enough for nearby officials to hear. The applause died instantly, replaced by a shocked silence. Austin's gaze instinctively sought out Mira, whose expression shifted from elation to horror as she realized what was happening. "This is absurd!" Mira exclaimed, pushing past stunned onlookers to reach Austin. "He's just overseen the most significant technological breakthrough in human Iridian history." As she approached, Ambassador Krell smoothly intercepted her, his grip on her arm both gentle and unyielding. Now, Mira," he said, his voice laden with false concern. "Let's not make a scene." Mira struggled against Krell's hold, her eyes locked on Austin as the security officers began to lead him away. "Austin!" she called out, her voice cracking with emotion. Austin managed to turn his head, meeting Mira's gaze one last time. In that moment, a wordless communication passed between them. A promise, a declaration of feelings too deep for verbal expression. The test chamber erupted into chaos. Human officials argued with their Iridian counterparts, each side demanding explanations and hurling accusations. Above the din, Admiral Blackwell's voice rang out, ordering the chamber cleared and all non-essential personnel to return to their quarters. As Austin was escorted from the room, Lieutenant Chen slipped away, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. She made her way to a secluded communication station and initiated a transmission to both human and Iridian media outlets. With a few keystrokes, she uploaded the footage of Austin and Mira's kiss in the engine room. "Let's see how they handle this," Chen muttered to herself, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Meanwhile, Lyra observed the unfolding drama with growing unease. She had been tasked with seducing Austin to drive a wedge between him and Mira, but witnessing their genuine connection had stirred something within her. As she watched Austin being led away, Lyra made a decision that would alter the course of events on Orion 7. Slipping away from the crowd, Lyra made her way to a secure terminal. Her fingers flew over the keypad as she began accessing restricted files, searching for anything that could exonerate Austin and Mira. Across the shipyard, Dr. Elias Vega received an alert about the unfolding situation. The xenobiologist's interest was immediately piqued by the unprecedented case of human Iridian attraction. He began compiling his research notes, preparing to offer his expertise in the investigation of Austin and Mira's relationship. As Austin was processed and placed in the brig, Mira found herself confined to her quarters, effectively under house arrest. She paced the small room, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of the day's events. The triumph of the engine test now felt hollow in the face of the personal disaster that had followed. Mira's thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock at her door. She opened it to find Marcus, a human engineer she had worked with on several occasions. "Mira," Marcus whispered, glancing nervously down the corridor. "I don't have much time, but I want to help. I can get you access to restricted areas of the shipyard. If there's evidence to clear Austin's name, we'll find it." Mira's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you, Marcus," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "When can we start?" "Tonight," Marcus replied. "I'll come for you after the night shift change. Be ready." As Marcus slipped away, Mira felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would not stand idly by while Austin suffered. Whatever it took, she would uncover the truth and fight for their future together. In the brig, Austin sat on the narrow cot, his head in his hands. The events of the day played out in his mind on an endless loop. The exhilaration of the successful test, the horror of his arrest, and the anguish in Mira's eyes as he was led away. The sound of approaching footsteps caused Austin to look up. A stern-faced interrogator entered the cell, flanked by 2 guards. "Chief Officer Allen," the interrogator began, his voice cold and professional. "You've been accused of serious crimes against both human and Iridian interests. I suggest you cooperate fully if you want any chance of leniency." Austin straightened his back, meeting the interrogator's gaze with unwavering willpower. Whatever they threw at him, he would not betray Mira or denounce his feelings for her. As the questioning began, Austin steeled himself for the long night ahead, clinging to the memory of Mira's eyes in that final moment before they were separated. Outside the shipyard, news of the scandal was spreading like wildfire. The leaked footage of Austin and Mira's kiss played on repeat across both human and Iridian media channels, sparking fierce debates about the implications of interspecies relationships. As public opinion polarized, a small group of extremists from both species saw an opportunity to further their own agenda. In a dimly lit room on the outskirts of the Orion 7 facility, human and Iridian extremists gathered, united in their desire to derail the fragile peace between their species. They huddled around a holographic display of the shipyard, plotting their attack on the hybrid engine prototype. "This abomination cannot be allowed to exist," hissed a human extremist, his finger tracing the path to the engine room. "We'll strike at the heart of their so-called cooperation and show both sides the folly of their ways." As the conspirators finalized their plans, the fate of Austin, Mira, and the future of human-Iridian relations hung in the balance. The Orion 7 facility, once a symbol of interstellar collaboration, now stood at the center of a brewing storm that threatened to tear apart everything they had worked for. As the conspirators finalized their plans, a flurry of activity erupted across Orion 7. In his laboratory, Dr. Elias Vega hunched over a holographic display, his eyes wide with disbelief. The results of his latest tests on human Iridian physiology blinked before him, defying decades of assumptions about the 2 species. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the analysis again. But the data remained unchanged. Human and Iridian DNA showed remarkable compatibility, far beyond anything previously documented. The implications were staggering. Dr. Vega's comm unit chirped, interrupting his thoughts. "Dr. Vega, your presence is required in the main conference room immediately," came the terse message. As he made his way through the station's corridors, Vega's mind raced. How would this discovery impact the current crisis? Would it ease tensions or exacerbate them? Meanwhile, Mira and Marcus crouched in a dimly lit maintenance shaft, their eyes fixed on a datapad displaying encrypted communications between Admiral Blackwell and Ambassador Krell. "Look at these transaction logs," Marcus whispered, pointing to a series of numbers. "They're funneling credits to arms manufacturers in both human and Iridian space." Mira's heart clenched. "They're profiting from keeping our people divided," she hissed, her voice tight with anger. "We need to get this information to someone who can act on it." A soft beep from Mira's personal comm device startled them both. She pulled it out, her eyes widening as she saw the sender. Austin. In the brig, Austin pressed the small communication device Lyra had smuggled to him against his ear. "Mira," he whispered urgently. "Can you hear me?" "Austin!" Mira's voice came through, tinny but clear. "How did you—" "No time to explain," Austin cut her off. "Listen, there's an extremist plot to attack the station. They're targeting the hybrid engine prototype. You need to warn security immediately." Mira's breath caught in her throat. "Understood. Austin, be careful. I'll find a way to clear your name, I promise." As Mira and Marcus rushed to alert station security, they rounded a corner and nearly collided with Lieutenant Sarah Chen. Chen's hand flew to her sidearm. "Hold it right there," she barked. "You're both under—" "Lieutenant, wait," Mira interjected. "We have evidence of a conspiracy involving Admiral Blackwell and Ambassador Krell, and there's an imminent attack on the station." Chen's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, her comm unit crackled to life. "All personnel, we have a security breach in Docking Bay 3. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." The sound of distant explosions punctuated the announcement. Chen's face hardened as she made a split-second decision. "Show me what you've got," she demanded. As Mira pulled up the evidence on her datapad, Chen's expression shifted from skepticism to shock, then to anger. "I've been played for a fool," she muttered. Looking up at Mira and Marcus, she nodded grimly. "All right, let's move. We need to get to the security control center." The trio sprinted through the corridors, dodging panicked station personnel. As they reached the control center, alarms blared, and holographic displays showed multiple breaches across the station. "They're heading for the engine room," Chen observed, her fingers flying over the control panel. "I'm locking down all non-essential areas and rerouting security forces." Mira's eyes locked onto a maintenance shuttle docked nearby. "I can use that to defend the station from the outside," she said, already moving towards it. "You're not authorized," Chen began, but Mira cut her off. "With all due respect, Lieutenant, I'm the best pilot on this station. You need me out there." Chen hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Go. We'll coordinate from here." As Mira climbed into the shuttle's cockpit, her mind raced through pre-flight checks. The maintenance vessel wasn't designed for combat, but its maneuverability could give her an edge. Outside, chaos reigned. Mira's expert piloting skills immediately came into play as she weaved through debris and weapons fire. Her actions, broadcast on screens throughout the station, began to shift perceptions. Humans watched in awe as the Iridian pilot defended their home with unwavering commitment. In the brig, Austin had managed to overpower his guards during the confusion. He sprinted towards the engine room, his heart pounding with each step. As he burst through the doors, he found Ambassador Krell hunched over the control panel. "Step away from the engine, Krell," Austin commanded, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. Krell turned, his expression a mix of surprise and contempt. Chief Officer Allen, come to play the hero?" "I know about your conspiracy with Blackwell," Austin said, edging closer. "It's over." Krell's eyes narrowed. "You understand nothing, human. This engine, this entire project, it threatens everything we've built. Our societies aren't ready for this level of integration." "You mean you're not ready to lose your power?" Austin retorted. With a snarl, Krell lunged at Austin. The two grappled fiercely, Krell's Iridian strength matching Austin's combat training. They crashed into consoles and equipment, neither gaining the upper hand. Suddenly, warning klaxons blared. The hybrid engine's core began to pulse erratically, energy levels spiking dangerously. Outside, Mira had just disabled another attacking ship when she received the alert about the engine's critical state. Without hesitation, she steered the maintenance shuttle back towards the station, pushing its engines to their limit. As she raced to the engine room, Dr. Vega's voice came over the station-wide comm system. "Attention all personnel," he announced, his voice tinged with excitement despite the chaos. "I have conclusive evidence that human and Iridian physiology is far more compatible than we ever imagined. The potential for cooperation between our species goes beyond anything we've considered before." Mira burst into the engine room to find Austin and Krell locked in combat near the overloading core. Without a word, she rushed to the control panel, her fingers dancing over the familiar Iridian interface. "Austin," she called out, "I need you to modulate the human systems while I work on the Iridian components." Hearing Mira's voice, Austin broke away from Krell and joined her at the controls. Together, they worked in perfect synchronization, their knowledge of their respective technologies complementing each other flawlessly. As the engine's energy levels began to stabilize, Mira and Austin's eyes met. The adrenaline of the moment, combined with the relief of their success and the weight of their long-suppressed feelings, overwhelmed them. They came together in a passionate embrace, their lips meeting in a kiss that seemed to make time stand still. The moment was shattered by the sound of a weapon powering up. They turned to see Ambassador Krell, his face contorted with rage, aiming a plasma pistol at them. Before he could fire, Lieutenant Chen burst into the room, her own weapon trained on Krell. "Drop it, Ambassador," she ordered. "It's over!" "It's over, Krell," Lieutenant Chen declared, her weapon unwavering. "You're under arrest for conspiracy and attempted sabotage." As Chen secured the ambassador, Austin and Mira exchanged a look of relief tinged with uncertainty. Their moment of triumph was short-lived as a team of security officers burst into the engine room, quickly taking control of the situation. "Chief Officer Allen, Mira, you'll need to come with us," one of the officers stated firmly. "The Joint Council is convening to address recent events." As they were escorted through the corridors of Orion 7, the station buzzed with a mixture of tension and excitement. Crew members whispered and pointed, their eyes following the unlikely pair. Austin could feel the weight of their stares, but his focus remained on Mira, walking beside him with her head held high. They were led to separate holding cells, the transparent barriers allowing them to see but not touch each other. Austin pressed his hand against the barrier, and Mira mirrored his action, their eyes conveying what words couldn't. Hours passed as the station's leadership grappled with the unprecedented situation. In the council chambers, heated debates raged between human and Iridian representatives. The revelation of Admiral Blackwell and Ambassador Krell's conspiracy had shaken the foundations of trust between the two species. Dr. Elias Vega stood before the council, his normally calm demeanor barely concealing his excitement. "Esteemed members of the council," he began, activating a holographic display, "what I'm about to show you will change everything we thought we knew about human-Iridian relations." The display flickered to life, showing intricate DNA strands intertwining in complex patterns. "My research has uncovered an astounding level of compatibility between human and Iridian physiology," Vega explained, his voice gaining confidence. "The potential for genetic integration goes far beyond our wildest expectations." Murmurs rippled through the council as Vega continued, presenting simulations of potential offspring with enhanced abilities. The implications were staggering, challenging centuries of assumed biological barriers between the species. As the council deliberated, a new voice cut through the chaos. "We cannot ignore the potential benefits of this discovery," declared General Victor Reeves, his weathered face set in determined lines. "I've seen firsthand the costs of mistrust and conflict between our species. It's time we consider a new approach." Reeves's words carried weight, his reputation as a pragmatic leader lending credence to his arguments. He gestured towards the holding cells where Austin and Mira waited. "These two have already demonstrated the power of human-Iridian cooperation. We should be looking to harness that potential, not suppress it." Meanwhile, in the holding area, Austin and Mira found themselves experiencing an unexpected physiological response. A wave of pheromones filled the air, causing nearby crew members to shift uncomfortably, their own bodies reacting to the potent chemical signals. Dr. Vega, alerted to the situation, rushed to the holding cells. His eyes widened as he took in the scene, quickly connecting the dots. "Fascinating," he muttered, tapping notes into his datapad. "Their attraction is triggering a cross-species response. This could have far-reaching implications for our understanding of human-Iridian biology." The council's deliberations were interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Zara and her team of Iridian scientists. The brilliant geneticist strode into the chamber, her iridescent scales shimmering under the lights. "Honored council members," Zara announced, her multifaceted eyes scanning the room, "we bring additional evidence that supports and expands upon Dr. Vega's findings." She activated her own holographic display, showing projections of human-Iridian hybrid children adapting to various planetary environments. Our research suggests that such offspring could potentially solve critical issues faced by both our species. As the Council grappled with this new information, an urgent message from Earth flashed across the main screen. Massive demonstrations in support of Austin and Mira had broken out in cities across the planet and Iridian colonies. The public, it seemed, was rapidly embracing the idea of closer human-Iridian relations. General Reeves seized the moment, stepping forward with a bold proposal. "I suggest we establish a pilot program for controlled human-Iridian partnerships," he stated, his voice carrying across the chamber. "With Austin and Mira as our first test subjects, we can study the full potential of this union under controlled conditions." The council chamber erupted in a mix of excited chatter and vehement protests. As the majority seemed to lean towards accepting Reeves's proposal, a group of hardline conservatives from both species made a desperate move. Alarms blared throughout Orion 7 as the station's communication systems suddenly went offline. In the engineering section, Lyra's antennae twitched as she detected the sabotage attempt. She quickly contacted Marcus, and together they raced to counteract the attack. Their fingers flew over control panels, their minds working in perfect sync as they combined their knowledge of human and Iridian systems. "Reroute the auxiliary power through the secondary relays," Lyra called out, her voice tense with concentration. Marcus nodded, making the adjustments with practiced ease. "Initiating system reset. Now!" With a satisfying hum, Orion 7's communication systems came back online, the hardliners' plan thwarted by the very cooperation they sought to prevent. Back in the council chamber, Dr. Vega burst in, his face flushed with excitement. "Council members, I have urgent news," he announced breathlessly. "My latest tests show that Austin and Mira's prolonged proximity has triggered a rare biological phenomenon. Their bodies are becoming increasingly attuned to each other on a cellular level." The chamber fell silent as the implications of this announcement sank in. General Reeves was the first to speak. "This development could lead to even greater scientific breakthroughs than we initially thought possible," he said, his voice filled with awe. As the weight of evidence and public pressure mounted, the council reached its decision. Austin and Mira were to be released from custody, and their relationship officially sanctioned as part of a pioneering research program. The news spread rapidly through Orion 7, sparking impromptu celebrations throughout the station. As the holding cell barriers were lowered, Austin and Mira rushed into each other's arms, their embrace broadcast across human and Iridian space. "I can't believe this is happening," Mira whispered, her heart's racing. Austin held her tightly, his voice thick with emotion. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As they walked hand in hand towards their new quarters, designed specifically for their unique situation, Austin and Mira could feel the weight of two civilizations' hopes resting on their shoulders. The challenges ahead were daunting, but in that moment, with the warmth of each other's touch, they felt ready to take on the universe. As Austin and Mira stepped into their new quarters, they were immediately struck by the stark contrast between the familiar comfort of a living space and the clinical atmosphere of a research facility. The room was spacious, with a large bed dominating one corner, but the walls were lined with an array of sensors and monitoring equipment. Dr. Elias Vega and Dr. Zara, the Iridian geneticist, were waiting for them, datapads in hand. "Welcome to your new home," Dr. Vega said, his excitement hardly restrained. "We've designed this space to be as comfortable as possible while allowing us to gather crucial data on your interactions." Mira's antennae twitched, sensing the underlying tension in the room. "So, every moment will be observed?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Dr. Zara stepped forward, her multifaceted eyes glinting under the bright lights. "We understand your concerns," she said, her voice a soothing hum. "Rest assured, we've implemented privacy protocols. You'll have designated periods free from active monitoring." Austin squeezed Mira's hand, feeling her apprehension through their touch. "We knew what we were signing up for," he said, meeting her gaze. "This is bigger than just us." As the scientists explained the research protocols and daily routines, Austin and Mira found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer scope of the project. Their lives would be a carefully orchestrated series of tests, examinations, and controlled interactions. The first few days were a whirlwind of activity. Austin and Mira underwent extensive physical examinations, their bodies scanned and analyzed in ways they had never experienced before. Dr. Vega was particularly interested in their physiological responses during prolonged physical contact. "Fascinating," he muttered, reviewing the data from their latest test. "Your immune responses are showing remarkable improvements. This could have far-reaching implications for both species." Despite the constant scrutiny, Austin and Mira found moments of intimacy in the quiet hours between tests. Late one night, as they lay in bed, Mira traced the contours of Austin's face with her slender fingers. "Sometimes I forget about all the equipment," she whispered, her antennae gently brushing against his forehead. "In these moments, it's just us." Austin pulled her closer, feeling the familiar warmth of her body against his. "No matter what happens, that won't change," he said softly. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a gentle chime from the room's communication system. "I apologize for the interruption," Dr. Zara's voice came through, "but we've detected some intriguing neural activity. Would you mind coming to the lab for a quick scan?" As they made their way to the research lab, Austin and Mira passed by a window overlooking the station's main promenade. They paused, startled by the sight of a large crowd gathered around a public view screen. The screen displayed their own images, along with scrolling text announcing an upcoming press conference. "I guess we're bigger news than we realized," Austin said, a nervous chuckle escaping his lips. General Victor Reeves met them outside the lab, his normally stern features softened by a hint of a smile. "You two have become quite the sensation," he said, gesturing towards the crowd, "which is why we need to control the narrative. I've arranged for a press conference tomorrow. It's time we put a human and Iridian face to this story." The next day, Austin and Mira found themselves standing before a sea of journalists, cameras, and curious onlookers. The press conference was being broadcast across human and Iridian space, reaching billions of viewers. Austin took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. "We stand before you today, not just as representatives of our respective species," he began, his voice growing stronger with each word, "but as living proof that our differences can bring us together rather than drive us apart." Mira stepped forward, her iridescent scales shimmering under the bright lights. "Our journey has not been easy," she added, her melodic voice carrying across the room. "But every challenge we've faced has only strengthened our bond and our belief in the potential of human-Iridian cooperation." As they fielded questions from the assembled reporters, Austin and Mira could feel the mood in the room shifting. The initial skepticism gave way to genuine curiosity and, in some cases, outright support. Following the press conference, they returned to their quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. As they settled in for the night, Dr. Vega burst into the room, his eyes wide with excitement. "We've made a breakthrough," he exclaimed, brandishing a datapad. "The protein produced when your genetic material combines, it shows incredible potential for treating genetic disorders in both humans and Iridians." As Austin and Mira absorbed this news, they realized that their relationship had implications far beyond their personal lives. They were on the cusp of a scientific revolution that could change the future of both their species. The following weeks saw an intensification of the research program. New equipment was brought in, and additional scientists joined the team. Austin and Mira found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity, their daily lives a blur of tests, interviews, and groundbreaking discoveries. One evening, as they were preparing for bed, Mira suddenly froze, her antennae quivering. "Austin," she whispered, I can feel what you're feeling." Austin stared at her in amazement, realizing that he too could sense her emotions. It was as if a new channel of communication had opened between them, transcending words and even touch. As they explored this new empathic connection, they found themselves growing even closer, understanding each other on a level they had never thought possible. But with this deepening bond came new questions and challenges. Dr. Zara approached them one morning, her expression serious. "We believe it's time to take our research to the next level," she said, her voice calm but tinged with excitement. "We'd like to propose an experiment, one that involves the potential conception of a human Iridian child." Austin and Mira exchanged a look, their newfound empathic link buzzing with a mix of excitement, fear, and uncertainty. They realized that the decision they were about to make would not only alter their lives, but could potentially shape the future of human-Iridian relations for generations to come. As they grappled with this monumental choice, tensions on Orion 7 continued to rise. Reports came in of protests both for and against the research program, and rumors swirled of political maneuvers to either expand or shut down the project. Austin and Mira found themselves at the center of a storm, their every move scrutinized, their relationship a symbol of hope for some and a threat to others. As they lay in bed that night, holding each other close, they knew that whatever decision they made, the path ahead would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties. "Let's do it," Austin said, breaking the silence that had stretched between them. His voice was steady, but Mira could feel the tremor of nervousness through their empathic link. Mira's antennae quivered as she processed his words. "You're sure?" she asked, her iridescent eyes searching his face. Austin nodded, pulling her close. "We've come this far. If our relationship can pave the way for a better future for both our species, we owe it to ourselves and everyone else to try." The next morning, they informed Dr. Zara of their decision. The Iridian geneticist's multifaceted eyes gleamed with excitement as she outlined the proposed fertility treatments. Over the following weeks, Austin and Mira's lives became a whirlwind of medical procedures and tests. The treatments were grueling, pushing their bodies to their limits. There were days when Mira's scales lost their luster, and Austin's usually bright eyes were dulled with fatigue. But through it all, their bond grew stronger. Each night as they lay intertwined in their bed, their empathic connection hummed with shared drive and love. As news of their decision spread, Orion 7 became a powder keg of tension. Protesters gathered daily outside the research wing, their chants echoing through the station's corridors. "Genetic abomination!" screamed one group, while another countered with shouts of "freedom for love." Security around the couple was tightened, with armed guards now a constant presence outside their quarters. General Reeves personally oversaw their protection, his weathered face creased with concern. "We're doing everything we can to keep you safe," he assured them during one of his frequent visits. "But I won't lie to you. The situation is volatile." Despite the chaos surrounding them, Austin and Mira found moments of peace in their private quarters. One evening, as they sat by the viewport watching distant stars, Mira suddenly gasped. "Austin," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement, "I can feel it. Something's different." Dr. Vega confirmed it the next day, his face split by an ear-to-ear grin. "Congratulations," he announced, barely containing his excitement. "You're pregnant." The news sent shockwaves through both human and Iridian societies. On Earth, Senator Graves called an emergency session of the Interstellar Relations Committee. "This abomination must be stopped," he thundered, his face red with anger. "We cannot allow the pollution of the human genome." On Iridia, High Counselor Thax echoed these sentiments, rallying conservative factions against the threat to Iridian purity. But for every voice raised in protest, another spoke out in support. Dr. Zara's team released preliminary findings showing the remarkable adaptability of the hybrid embryo, igniting hope for groundbreaking medical advancements. As Mira's pregnancy progressed, Austin found himself constantly amazed by the changes in her body. Her scales took on a new, radiant sheen, and her normally slender form swelled with new life. "It's incredible," he murmured one night, his hand gently resting on her growing belly. "I can feel our child's presence through our link. It's like a new star being born." Mira's antenna curled in contentment. "Our little cosmic miracle," she agreed, her voice soft with wonder. Their peaceful moment was shattered by the sudden blare of alarms. Red emergency lights bathed their quarters as General Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom. "We're under attack. Multiple breaches reported. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately. Security teams to your stations." Austin sprang into action, years of military training kicking in. He helped Mira to her feet, his mind racing through evacuation protocols. "We need to get you to safety," he said, grabbing an emergency pack from beneath their bed. But Mira shook her head, her eyes blazing with willpower. "I can help," she insisted. "My piloting skills. I can coordinate the evacuation from the control room." Before Austin could protest, Dr. Vega burst into their quarters, his lab coat askew. "We need to move," he panted. "The medical bay's been hit. We're setting up an emergency delivery room in the engine section." Austin's heart raced as he realized the implications. "But it's too early," he said, looking at Mira in alarm. She clutched her swollen belly, her face contorted in pain. "I don't think our little one agrees," she gasped. As they hurried through the chaos-filled corridors of Orion 7, Austin's military instincts warred with his desire to stay by Mira's side. The sound of weapons fire echoed in the distance, growing closer with each passing moment. "Go," Mira urged him, sensing his conflict through their link. "Protect the station, protect our future." With a final, desperate embrace, Austin reluctantly left Mira in Dr. Vega's care. He raced towards the sound of battle, his heart pounding with fear and grit. The corridors of Orion 7 had become a war zone. Austin found himself fighting alongside both human and Iridian security forces, their differences forgotten in the face of a common enemy. As he fought his way through the station, Austin's thoughts never strayed far from Mira. Through their empathic link, he could feel her pain, her fear, and her unwavering strength. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of combat, Austin reached the heavily fortified engine room. He arrived just as a piercing cry cut through the air, the sound of new life entering the universe. Inside, he found Mira cradling a tiny bundle, her scales shimmering with exhaustion and joy. Dr. Vega and Dr. Zara hovered nearby, their faces a mix of awe and concern. "Austin," Mira whispered as he approached, "meet our daughter." As Austin gazed down at the miraculous blend of human and Iridian features, the door to the engine room burst open. A group of armed extremists poured in, weapons raised. Austin and Mira stood united, shielding their newborn from the threat. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the soft cooing of the infant. Then, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, the baby opened her eyes. The extremists faltered, their weapons wavering as they beheld the child's iridescent gaze, a perfect fusion of human depth and Iridian brilliance. In that moment, the enormity of what had been achieved hit home. This was not a threat to be eliminated, but a new beginning to be cherished.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.